Okay. Hi, Sunita. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining me today.
Hey, Miaj, pleasure being here. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thank you for your time. I have a couple of questions that I think could be extremely beneficial to the masses that I've been hearing from a couple of customers. And I know you have the skill set to help us get those answered.
Absolutely. Shoot for it.
Perfect. So the first question is, what are some factors that lead or help lead a company to choose between CMMI services or CMMI development?
So, in order to choose for either of the constellations, organization should look at their capabilities first. So, your capabilities and the projects that you have, if they are more geared towards whatever you're offering, it could be services that you're offering or you're doing any development work, that will become the decision factor because if whether you're a prime or a sub, that's not very super critical. But if you do not have any project which are development centric, you can't select the mod. You can't select that
Okay.
constellation. And one of the other things is you if you have a project you want to, if someone says we can start an internal project, if you don't have projects which are development centric internally, meaning at the organizational level, selecting one project or coming up with a project may not be a good idea because you want to have some history to it. But if you are doing development or research activities and hence you want to select it from the headquarters as internal project and development, for sure you can select.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but this selection generally just happens based on your capabilities as an
Okay.
organization. Yeah.
No development, then you're not choosing that at all.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. And then what are when dealing with a team, a lot of cases buy-in is the biggest factor. What are some steps to take to communicate the value of CMMI, the appraisal internally, again, to gain that buy-in from leadership and employees?
The biggest perk of the benefit or the value, I would say, is going to be um, knowing that the consistency in the processes and the transparency. Projects are generally handled based on the agency you're working with. The agency, when I say agency, meaning the government agency, some agencies need very thorough follow-ups and certain things to be very followed with a rigor. Some agencies don't want it followed to that degree. So as the own business, strategy makers, decision makers, C-suite or the executive team may not see consistencies of how the projects are being handled, right? There is an update for sure, but that's just what it is. It's an update. You're just monitoring, okay, how's the project, what is the burn rate, what is the spend. You're just looking at that and the resource utilization and all, but you do not get an understanding of how is the project performing. So when you do CMMI, that is the level of transparency that gets established in the, where if, because CMMI looks at what is being done on a project, thinking all the projects are handled uniformly, it becomes a very important um, value for the organization to understand that for any organization to grow and to sustain, you need uniformity.
Okay. Okay. And then that falls right in line with my other question, which would be, can you think of some specific process bottlenecks or inefficiencies that maybe even a red flag or even a green flag that should push a company to seek CMMI?
Yes, there are several. Um, since CMMI addresses process consistency, uniformity, as well as headquarter process structures, because what you do at the headquarter level, like I said, it is what you do, meaning you've already established these processes and you have adopted these policies and practices in your projects, and that's how you're delivering. So that's how the CMMI appraisals are done, to check that are you following the process or not. The bottleneck which an organization generally has, and that is being handled, is those inconsistencies. Those inconsistencies in projects, miscommunications in the projects. Um, Generally, there are not too many delays, but with the the dynamic in the global market now changing, what's happening is, let's say an organization is doing any development work. There are updates that are done, and they are all CUI based. CUI is control unclassified information, or something that is more sensitive in nature. Um, and you can't communicate that back to, let's say, the project manager or someone who's your supervisor. So how do you make sure that there is a clarity in understanding that certain process will be handled in a secure enclave? Um, Not establishing those framework becomes a bigger challenge of not knowing exactly what is going on in the project, right? So that becomes like, okay, we just have these numbers, we don't know exactly how the project, and then there is a complaint that comes, or there is a breach that happens, and everybody is like, oh, we thought everything was going good, but you really did not know what was going good.
Okay.
Next thing, which when you do the CMMI, uh, typically for the services, you also establish something called a business continuity. That's very important. Service continuity, that's very important. And the reason these things are very important is um, to know how you will people, processes, and facilities. All these three aspects, you would have identified the contingencies. What if the main communicating people, they are on a leave or something happens? Who is going to be second in charge? How is the escalation set up? Processes don't work. What's the backup here? Systems don't work. What is the backup? If the facility from where they are delivering that is not available, accessible for whatever reason, it can be natural disaster. What is our contingency plan? Those are the biggest elements. Like system, we know for sure that is a big one. We had a recent instance of CrowdStrike, and that impacted everyone. They are very big in cybersecurity. So what happens is, when you run into those issues, how you will navigate them and operate seamlessly. CMMI helps you with the incident resolution, continuity, CMMI services, to be very specific. You would have established these processes and you would be following it. Regular monitoring, following it. So that's where I see the most benefit coming out of implementing any of these systems.
Like that. It sounds like now there's a two birds, one stone effort with CMMI that could come into play with a bigger return on investment, but it can end up helping the company make sure they're not bottlenecked from the start, make sure their framework is intact, but then still being able to market themselves, saying that they do have it all in order as well. Okay, awesome.
Right. Definitely, because when it's not a bottleneck, but I think it's a mindset issue, that it's more work. But like anything which will give you more value in the front end, that may seem like more work, but the return of investment, I can promise you, is, if not 4 times, about 4 or 5 times there. You do get those return on. It's not just from the projects that you're winning, it is also the employee retention, because it's that confidence, right? There is so less miscommunication that happens, and informal methods are not followed. I think a lot of people, when you're working with with the government, there is a lot of protocols that have to be followed, like the formal reports have to be submitted. You have to follow that, and the people are also set. Their mindsets is such to look at it in a certain way. Project managers look at it something very objective. They're very rational people. If they don't have processes, that's not something appreciated. So, and they lose the confidence. And we all know how critical it is to have a very good, with every project, to have a very good program manager and project managers.
Very much so.
Yeah, very much so. So this is one of the biggest elements, I think, to keep people motivated, to keep people constantly, communicated with, so that they understand, okay, everything, and giving them the proper tools. Like if you have the best people and not have the proper tools, CMMI becomes a tool.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you. You've been extremely helpful, extremely knowledgeable. Thank you again. Yeah, return on investment sounds very big, not only externally, but internally for the team. So thank you, Sunita, and I hope you have a great day.
Absolutely. Always great to talk. Bye now.
Likewise. Bye.